Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope that you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, we talk with the amazing Rebekah Poe, a middle school special education teacher from Alabama, about how students need to feel loved and valued in an ever-changing world. Without any further ado, Rebekah Poe.
Rebekah, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. For our listeners that don't have the absolute privilege of knowing who you are, could you tell us who are you, where are you from, and what's your role in education?
Absolutely. First off, thank you guys for having me on here tonight. I'm super excited and very honored that I'm here. My name is Rebekah Poe. I am currently a sixth grade special education teacher. I mostly work with students with learning disabilities in the inclusion setting. I've worked with every grade K through 6 except fifth graders. And, so I've got the little ones, I've got the big ones, and kind of everywhere in between. But I'm working toward getting more certifications, and I would like to eventually help other teachers learn to teach special education.
You got something against fifth graders?
I mean, no, I honestly never really wanted to teach above third grade.
Mm.
But the middle school that I'm currently at is within walking distance of my house. It's within walking distance of my daughter's school, and my husband also works there. So I kind of had to jump on that opportunity, and sixth graders are a lot of fun. They're a lot of energy and a lot of hormones, but they're a lot of fun.
I think it takes a special calling. I mean, elementary school, absolutely love elementary school. Middle school kids, there's something about hormones or a sense of humor that's still being developed, like and refined. I don't know, but congratulations to you for being a middle school teacher. I don't know if I could do it. Josh, could you do it?
I do not think so. And it's mostly for the same things that you're saying. Like I don't know. I don't know. Middle school is kind of an awkward age, right? And maybe I'm wrong and just projecting how middle school was for me. What's it like, Rebekah?
It's just as awkward as when we were in middle school, to be perfectly honest. I think the things that we went through are magnified now because of things like TikTok and social media. So everything that you do that was embarrassing when you were in middle school, chances are somebody now is recording, put it online. So you get to relive that moment over and over and over again, which I'm just very thankful that smartphones were not a thing when I was 11, because there are some moments that I'm happy to forget.
I've read that and I've heard that kids today and the anxiety that some social media causes is like, it's horrible, because it used to be that I could get picked on in middle school, but I would go home and that would be my safe environment. But now I go home and my social media is full of responses to a post I made or responses to a post my friend made. And it's never ending. Like, there isn't a disconnect. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's constant and it's automatic. Like, it's instantaneous is what I mean. So when something happens and it's shared, everyone sees it all at the same time. We have, information travels so quickly, and the amount of stress that these kids are under is astonishing. And I think it's been impacted mostly because, everybody was at home for a while.
Right.
And social media was how they were connecting with their friends. And it has just kind of escalated and grown to where now everything that they do and that they're thinking about is, how many likes is this going to get me? If I post this, are they going to like it? Are they going to make fun of me? It's skewed their way of thinking, I feel like.
Yeah, social media is a very, very weird place, right? Like, have you ever seen the movie, Rebekah and Tom too? Like, I know you both have young kids. Have you ever seen the movie Ron's Gone Wrong?
Mm.
I've never even heard of that one.
Please go watch it. Okay, cool. So it's about this boy and these now I'm not going to be able to think of what they're called, but they're equating it to iPhones. and everything that they do is shared instantaneously with their friends. It's crazy how much stress it causes these kids in the movie, and how much I was watching it. And my kids are laughing because Disney makes it funny, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's exactly what it is like for every single kid in my 5th grade class. I had them read a book called Maniac McGee and asked them the question, like, is there ever a time in your life that you've been running from something like Maniac has been? And one kid wrote about social constructs in his life. And I was like, it is 5th grade. Why are you worried about that, right? But then you take a step back and you're like, your world is way different than mine.
When I was in 5th grade, my biggest concern was which of the members of NSYNC was going to fall in love with me. And these children now have access to everyone else on the planet, and everyone else on the planet has access to them.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter in 3rd grade, and she's already after me, Mommy, can I get a smartphone? Can I get an iPhone? Absolutely not. You are 9 years old. That's not happening. But in just a few years, it will be.
Right.
And that's terrifying as a parent.
Yeah, it really is. My son's in 4th grade and he's all about, can I get a TikTok and some of his peers have them, or can I get a YouTube channel because some of my peers have them? Well, what are you going to do? What content are you going to produce? Anything. I mean, I could put Legos together. I could make this construction out of a cardboard box. And part of me thinks, man, that's really cool. Like, he wants to get into content production at such a young age and he has a direction for it. And then I'm like, yeah, you kind of open him up to
Exactly.
a world of comments and hurt and dislikes and likes. And then where does he get his self-worth from? Because he has these outlets that he's putting himself out there. It's scary. It's really scary, you know?
And talking about self-worth, I know myself as a 30-year-old woman, you know, when I get negative comments, it hurts. And I'm a fully grown adult human being. And I know that that's just a person on the other side of the screen. But for these kids, they do put so much of their worth into it. And, you know, we have all these TikTok challenges that were going around earlier this year. Did y'all schools? I said y'all, sorry. Did your schools? I'm from Alabama. I'm going to say y'all.
You keep saying y'all. Like, that adds character. I sit there and I'm like, yes, y'all.
Yes, y'all. If I start saying bless your heart, though, that's when things get a little dicey, because that's never a positive comment.
Well, we're studying the Southeast right now in 4th grade, so I appreciate you enlightening us on
You're welcome.
Some of the
vernacular of the Southern United States. Absolutely. Yes. Did your schools go through the whole TikTok challenge rigmarole where bathrooms are being vandalized and things like that?
Did yours?
Mine did.
We did. We had a couple. It wasn't the whole school. So Tom and I have a different stance in that, like elementary. So we've only got a couple kids that see those challenges. But yeah, we did have a couple students that partook in that.
I think we had soap dispensers taken down, and I think that was the extent of it. Once that happened, you know, in elementary school, you can put the lid on things pretty quick, and I think that happened at our school. So
we had some issues. We had to put in like a bathroom schedule where teachers had to take their whole class at one time, and it was very much, you know, like an elementary teacher, you know, walk your class to the restroom and then walk your class back. That's what we were having to do for 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And the ones who weren't participating in the challenges were so mad at the ones who were. And I think that's kind of what got it stopped. It wasn't that we were telling them not to, it was that their peers who they were with all day, every day, were upset about it, as opposed to, you know, the people on TikTok who were just watching the videos, thinking it was great. A lot of them, they do stuff for clout. And they do that for the instant gratification and for the likes and the comments, and to feel, you know, big and bad and like they're making an impression. I just wish there was something that we could do as teachers to give them that same type of validation in a more meaningful way. But it's very difficult to go to war essentially with the millions of TikTok users that these kids see every day.
Yeah.
I think that instant gratification is a hard thing for kids to understand, right? And it kind of points a light to why social emotional learning is so important, and those skills are so important for kids, for them to understand, like, hey, in this moment you might feel like, oh, I'm going to post this video, it's going to get millions of views. In reality it's probably going to get like 5, but you're also affecting your whole class, right? Like, how, I don't know, you're right, there's a huge disconnect between social media and the real world. And I feel like as teachers, it's becoming our responsibility of how do we bridge that gap for students to understand it. And it's
Yeah.
a hard one to bridge.
It is. It's very hard, especially when not everyone is willing to bridge it. Not everyone is willing to say these children need social emotional learning. These kids need to learn how to operate in the world they live in now. So we have people who think, well, when I was a kid, we didn't do any of this. Well, when you were a kid, none of this was around. When I was a kid, none of this was around. You can't equate the two. It's apples and oranges.
You know, I really think it is too. I think about some of the activities that I do in my own classroom with social emotional learning. And those were activities that I did at home with my parents, or those were activities that me and the neighbor kids would engage in on a regular. And we were outside and we were playing and learning how to relate through our play. And
Right.
and I think that you're on social media. My own kids are on Roblox or whatever their iPad YouTube is. They're watching Mr. Beast. And, you know, in my head, I try to rationalize it by saying, when I was a kid and my neighbor got that Nintendo or Atari, you know, they spent days on end on that Nintendo or Atari. But I don't think that's really true. I think we still spent quite a bit of time outside playing and learning social norms, you know?
And I think, you know, when we were younger, you couldn't text your friend. You had to actually talk to them. We didn't have all of the different social media platforms that were just typing. And we learned how to have conversations. We learned how to dial a phone and speak to someone and have an actual conversation back and forth, rather than you type your sentence, I type my sentence. And it did get us out a little bit more, because right now these kids, their whole world can be held in their hands with that phone. And for us, when we were younger, we didn't have that capability. We didn't even imagine it.
No.
And the skills that we were able to learn so easily came from our experiences. These kids aren't having the same experiences. We have to figure out other ways to teach them the same skills.
Yeah, my mom knew if I was being mean to somebody on the other end of that phone, because I could only stretch that phone cord
Exactly.
so far. And then she would say, knock it off, Tom. But then I would learn the lesson not to be mean on the phone, because parents, I couldn't just type it in or, you know, put it on a chat somewhere, right?
Yeah, it wasn't hidden, right? Like,
right.
You could stretch that cord and you could close the door, but you know you couldn't close the door the whole way. So you knew your grown up was on the other side listening. And once you said one thing, it was, the smackdown was on. Like, mom or dad was in that room. What did you just say? You're like, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it.
Yep.
It's so different and scary now, because you were talking on it, like the way kids have conversations with each other, it's not in person. So on Monday, we were going around in our class talking about highs and lows for the weekend. What are some good things and some bad things that happened? And some kids started talking about a birthday party that they went to. And they'd be like, yeah, they were pouring Pepsi all over my pizza, and they were throwing cake as we were running around this place. And I sat there, my heart didn't break, but I just sat there and I was kind of like, one, that's unexpected, right? Like, those aren't skills that are appropriate out in public. You want to do that in the basement of your friend's house, that might be a different story. But you guys are telling me a story about being in front of the public. Like, what do I need to do now to help you understand. That's not appropriate. And there's a lot that gets put on our shoulders with that, right? Like, we still want to have fun in the class. We still need to learn about academics and we still need to push the rigor. But how do I help you understand outside of this classroom things that are appropriate and inappropriate, expected and unexpected?
So for me, I teach special education. So some of my students have behavior goals where that is actually part of their school content, is working on those behavioral skills, those social interaction skills. And one thing that I learned is their behavior is always communication. I spoke on that at Teach Your Heart Out over the summer. And depending on the feeling that is bringing forth this behavior, the feeling is what we need to concentrate on. We don't want to invalidate their feelings, because what they're feeling in that moment is a big feeling. And so we ask them, well, what could you do to feel less angry right now? And sometimes they are, well, can I go get a drink of water? Absolutely. Remove yourself from the environment, take a couple minutes, go get a wet paper towel. All teachers know wet paper towels cure everything. But sometimes they're like, well, I could punch him in the face. You could, but let's talk about what might happen if you did that. So I try to put it back on the student to come up with a reasonable solution to those feelings, so that next time, maybe instead of jumping into that reaction, they kind of pause and think, okay, I'm getting really angry. I'm going to go get a sip of water. I need to step away. But as long as we're talking through the feeling and they're learning that feelings and their behaviors are connected, that's where we can have instruction.
Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right. And I think that not only special ed students would benefit from understanding that connection between emotion, and behavior, but regular ed students really need that too, because if they are feeling anxious instead of sad, or if they are feeling let down instead of angry, the reactions can be really different, and the copings mechanisms that are used are different depending on your feelings too. So good for you for not invalidating anybody's feelings. I think that's really, really huge. And that's another thing that's changed, I think, in education is when I was a kid, get over it,
Exactly.
But we're recognizing the emotion in people. And I think that's really fantastic.
If we're just telling them to get over their feelings, we're not teaching them how to address them and how to move through them from a negative feeling into a positive feeling, or a negative reaction to a positive reaction.
And it becomes a scary place if we do that with all kids, right? Like, if we tell kids that their feelings aren't valid, I'm not saying that every kid's going to turn to drugs or alcohol, but that's how it starts, right? Is that we feel like our feelings aren't real and we find ways to cope with them that might not be the healthiest way. And what I've seen is, like, Rebekah, you touched on it with social media, and I don't know how much like pushback you get when you talk about feelings, but like people call me soft and tell me that I'm hurting society by not telling kids how the real world is. And I sit there in a place like, I don't want kids to feel like their feelings aren't real, right? Like, that's not what we want.
Well, as I'm married. I know you're married. When your wife is upset about something and you tell her, oh, that's not a big deal, or you just need to relax, how's that going to go for you? Is that going to go very well? No, because it doesn't go well for my husband either.
Yeah, usually I'm down with Nala next to a window in her dog bed.
We don't want to hear that. Why do we feel like it's okay to say it to a child? If we don't want someone to invalidate our feelings, why do we think it's okay to turn around and do that to a 10-year-old?
I think you're, again, just speaking the truth, because we're adults, and when we deal with children, it's really, really easy sometimes to forget that
Exactly.
we need to empower and treat them with more care than what we get treated with even. um,
Absolutely.
Rebekah, this is fantastic, and you're just a wealth of knowledge. But tell us about what got you into education, what got you into special education, um, and what got you into this. Besides the being so close to your house, the middle school.
All right. I never intended to be a teacher. That was not something that I envisioned for myself. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but it was not going to be working with kids all day, every day. Um, my husband is a teacher. He took a job away from where we were living. We moved to the area that we're in now, and he was hired as a part-time teacher, which meant he didn't get health insurance.
Mhm.
And the principal said, well, I have a full-time paraprofessional position if you think your wife would be interested in that, and we could get you guys insurance that way. Sure, that sounds great. Let's do it. Health insurance. Yes, I'm in.
Necessary, yes.
And so I started working as a paraprofessional for special education, fell completely in love with it, and was content to be a para for several years until my principals at the time told me, you could do more.
Mm.
And just kind of spoke that into me. And I realized, there I would see things going on and not be in a position to do anything about it. And I wasn't okay with that. I wanted to make changes, and I had ideas that I thought might work, and I saw some things that I wanted to keep going and saw some things that I wanted to change, and decided when my daughter was 5 months old, I went back to school for education, or for English, because I knew I couldn't do student teaching as a new mom, as a wife. And we needed my salary. Mm-hmm. And so I got my bachelor's degree in English, non-education, and immediately started my master's degree. And I started my master's in January of 2016. My daughter was 2. And yeah, I was in school for the first 5 years of her life, completing my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. And I graduated in 2018 with my master's. The school that I was working at as a para jumped all over that and hired me on as a teacher. And I stayed there for 2 years. And then the position at the middle school opened up where I am. And I'm thinking, eventually, if I am wanting to continue to move up and work with more teachers, having a greater range of experience with the little ones, and then with secondary with my 6th graders, I want to learn as much as I can and have all the experiences that I can get so that I can help others implement the changes that they want to see happen, and work with the students in a way that I know that they need. And I feel like if I can be a resource, not just for the students, but also for my teachers, for my special education teachers, and also the gen ed co-teachers that I work with, if I can be a resource for them, then I feel like we'll be able to reach more kids than just a class of my own.
I love that. That is quite a journey that you have been on.
Yeah. It was hard. It was very hard. I could not have done it without my husband. He did laundry and dishes and, daddy duty all the time so that I could study and get both of my degrees while also having a child and working full time and being married. So I definitely couldn't have done it without him.
Well, that's incredible. Go ahead.
I was just kudos to him. Let's get a name drop in there so that when he's listening, he'd be like, "That's right, that's me."
Husband Andrew, his name is Andrew. He won't let me start him a social media account for his teaching, but his classroom management is the stuff of legend. Like he's a band director, so he has the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and then also works with a high schooler. So he has these kids from the time they're 11 until they graduate high school, and he's a rock star. He's, I want to grow up and be a teacher like him.
Rebecca, your passion it's there. Like it's just absolutely clear. It's on display. You couldn't have got through like your undergraduate and your master's if you weren't passionate about it. I would imagine that like somewhere along the way, there were some serious questions about why in the world am I doing this? Like, is it going to be worth it? Um, and we have some listeners that are going to be brand new teachers. They're going through college right now. What would you tell them to stay inspired? Or maybe they're first year teachers going through this pandemic, or maybe they've only been teachers in the pandemic. What would you tell them to stay inspired?
So I'm thinking specifically right now of my math co-teacher. Her name is Taya, and she's a first year teacher, and she's never not taught in a pandemic before. And this year is unlike any other year. I think every teacher is feeling it right now. We're all kind of riding on the struggle bus all together. For teachers who don't know what it was like before, I feel like it can be kind of hard to find that motivation to keep going, because it's hard for me some days. This is very difficult. But what keeps me going is just finding the little things, and it can be the smallest, most minute thing that happened during the day that is a positive. 100 negative things can happen, one positive thing. Hold on to that, keep that close, and try to do it again the next day. Like today was a particularly rough day, but one of my students, who is a struggling reader, read the word complex on her own, unprompted, broke it into syllables, and read it. And that's what I'm choosing to carry with me into tomorrow. Not the fights, not the arguments, not the lack of assignments being submitted and turned in. I'm going to carry with me the fact that my student read a word that she didn't think she could read.
Yeah.
And was so proud of herself. That's what I'm going to carry into tomorrow and see if we can do it again.
I think that that's a great way to carry yourself through a career, right? Is whether you're in education or not, our jobs are going to be hard. For us, like the empathy that we have to carry into our day every day, that's hard. But when we can spend time and say, like, here's the one great thing that happened, and I'm going to focus on that. And it's not saying I'm not going to forget the hardships, right? Like, we're not talking toxic positivity. We're not saying that life is rainbows and unicorns all the time. But choosing happiness, that's a choice, right? Like, we can choose that. And when we can sit there on that one great moment of a student saying complex as they're reading, or we can sit there in a moment, because I saw it, Rebecca, you posted it the other day about a student asking you, should I slap him in the back of the neck?
You bless his heart. Oh, there's my bless his heart there.
There it is. There it was.
I knew it was. He was frustrated with a peer and looked at me and he goes, "Can I slap him in the neck?" No, buddy. Thank you for asking, but that's gonna be a no. Thank you for asking permission. And then he didn't do it. He didn't hit him. We continued on with the lesson.
Right. And so when we focus in on those moments, like, think about the growth that was for that student.
It was so good. I was so proud. And for other teachers who heard he was gonna slap him, but he didn't. So we're getting in the right direction.
Right. And those are those moments of joy that we find, those moments that we hold on to. And that's what keeps us going. Is think about the growth that kid made. Right? Like, I don't know. For me, those are the times when we want to complain, it's easy. But if we can find those moments, then our job, we can remember that why, right? I don't know. I get on a soapbox sometimes when these topics come up, because teaching's a passion, right? Rebecca, you have a passion. We've heard it tonight. Tom, you have a passion, and we have to spread that passion. Rebecca, I love everything that you're speaking. I love the way that you connect with kids, the way that you show them your love. we always ask, and Tom usually sings it. I don't know. Is it coming out tonight?
Yeah, you ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. That was
There's
back in the 60s, though. That's what it needed in the 60s. We got to update it a little bit.
Rebekah, let's update that song then right now.
All right.
If we were going to sing it, what's the chorus? Like, what does the world need now?
So I was thinking about this, obviously it's the title of your podcast, so it was something that was sticking in my mind. And the word that I kept coming back to was empathy. Because as we talked about before, these students are going through something that we've never been through before as students, as adults even. And rather than trying to gloss over their feelings or gloss over the circumstances, if we could take a moment to put ourselves into the shoes of that 11-year-old who just, got blasted on social media for wearing, I don't know, the wrong team's hat, we could understand where they're coming from a little bit more and see that it is a big deal for them. And not just with the students.
I think that's absolutely right, Rebekah. I think empathy with students is huge. I think that we owe it to ourselves and to our colleagues to be empathetic towards them. As we were recording, I just got a text from my teammate, and he has to stay home tomorrow, and he's asking that we get things ready for him, and extend that empathy to our coworkers, to our supportive principals, and everybody. I think empathy is a great answer, Rebekah.
Rebekah, we want to thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This has been a blessing and a joy for us.
I had so much fun.
You are doing amazing things in education. You are what the world needs now.
You are.
Oh,
More Rebekahs.
Warm, fuzzy feelings. Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed this. It was great talking to you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took your time to listen to our guest, Rebekah Poe. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives, and hopefully what the world needs now is helping you to sustain your inspiration as we journey through this school year. If it is, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us to get inspirational educator stories out.
We hope that as you head out, you remember the biggest factor that plays into student success is you. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication. It's exactly what the world needs now. Thank you for all you do. Have a good one.